on this episode of Insight, how names shape our lives. Thank you so much for being here. Stephen, you share your surname with a well-known figure. What is your full name?
Stephen Trump.
When did you first realise you had a name that attracts a bit of attention?
The first time was when I was on a ship going around the Hawaiian Islands, and it was when the election was on between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. We went on there thinking, is this guy going to become president? I don't think so. We got on the boat. They found out my name was Trump and I was looked after. Oh, come and have a drink, Mr. Trump. I loved it. I loved it.
Does your name still get a reaction 10 years later?
Every time.
Really?
Every time. If I go and buy something and I walk up and I give my name, I get the same reaction. Silence, a little smirk and a little giggle.
What do people say if they say anything?
Oh, are you related?
Really?
Yes.
Can you tell fans from foes?
Because I've got this attitude that I think it's fun, I don't get foes.
Really?
I get people that want to join in and have fun. I get people that come out and say they love him, and then you hear people say, no, I don't like him. And I go, oh, okay.
Do you know of any other Trumps in Australia?
I know of one. I was down in Corowa and someone said, oh, we've got a Trump in town. And I said, where? I've never heard of another Trump in Australia. And they told me, I said, give me her phone number. Oh, I won't do that. So I went into the white pages and there she was. So I rang her up and I said, it's Stephen Trump. She said, what? And she said, where are you? I told her where I was. We'll be there in 10 minutes. And we met and discovered that we had the same great-great-great-great-grandparents.
Wow. Is it possible you're related to President Trump?
We came from Dorset in England, and I've connected with Trumps that are there, and they say we came from Germany in the 14th century, and then we came from the same area of Germany that he came from, but that's it.
Our next guest found support among other people who share her name, and they still managed to turn heads.
2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer. My mental health was quite low. I was spiralling down. I knew I needed to connect back with people. So I came to walk it off, and I arrived, and within 15 minutes there were 3 other women with the same name as my own. There's this certain notoriety of having my name, especially in the internet world. Your name's synonymous with this type of person that complains, that wants to talk to the manager, needs to talk to the manager immediately. Order your coffee with it and then watch the reactions.
I always put Fiona.
Do you?
I know someone who actually changed their name.
Really?
When they ordered food.
It's comforting to know that I'm not the only one who feels this way. So the conversation around my name and the other ladies' names was a source of amusement, but it's also a source of derision. In the group, we've learned to rise above it, and now we laugh about it. We really laugh. Hi, I'm Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen.
We are the Karens.
Karen, what's it like being called Karen these days?
Oh gosh, I wish I was over it. I wish it was gone and dusted, but it began during Trump's first presidency, and then because of COVID, it just took off again, and the memes now, Philly's Karen, which was about the Karen who took the baseball off the kid in a baseball game in America. So it's become a real identity that people first assume when you're actually meet for the very, very first time. Yeah.
Have you ever used a different name, like buying a coffee, for example?
Just like the first speaker here tonight, you know, the moment that you say your name, there is a slight downing of the smile of the barista or whatever, and people turned around and had a look, and because of my height and how I look, there was this certain judgment about what it is. Are you a kind Karen, or are you one of those complaining Karens? I actually put down Malat sometimes.
Oh. Basically, the surname of the serial killer,
Yes.
Ivan Milat.
Yes, I have done that.
And was that better to put Malat than Karen?
Actually, only heads turned of a certain age. Whereas the younger crowd, it's done and dusted with them, so they're forgotten. Whereas the Karen, we almost are certainly serial killers in some people's eyes.
Would you rather be a Karen or a Trump?
A Karen any day.
You were born in the 70s.
Yes, I
Has
was.
your given name always had connotations?
The year I was born, Karen was the second most common name for girls. And growing up, I was in a class of 28 and there were 3 of us. It would have been until 2016 that things changed, and they changed very quickly, and it was largely due to social media, the internet, things like an NRMA Facebook page. I was suddenly, if I made a comment, oh, you're just a Karen.
Wow.
It was so quick.
Let's take a look at some of those who have been dubbed Karens online.
Karen from Brighton shot to infamy after complaining about lockdown walks around her beachside suburb.
Well, you get sick of walking the same streets. I've done all of Brighton.
I think we all know a Karen in our life.
Excuse me.
What do you want?
Excuse me. And I can have you sued personally. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Karen, how does it feel to have your name become a term for such bad behaviour?
And a source of derision, yeah. I've recently done my CV and I'm scared to put it in and think, what are these people, are they immediately going to assume that I'm that type of Karen or whatever? You are your name and it is synonymous with part of you. So, yeah, having to actually explain that my situation is difficult, yeah.
Richard, you're here as your drag persona, Karen from Finance. What kind of Karen are you?
Well, I'm a great Karen. I'm like the kooky, fun, lovable Auntie Karen that turns up too early at a party with last night's leftover cheese and leaves a little too late and drinks everybody's wine. But I'm the fun, lovable opposite to Karen from Brighton.
So you're not speaking to the manager?
Never speaking to the manager.
You chose your stage name before the Karen meme. How did you come up with your character?
I came up with the idea and the character of Karen from Finance long before I even started thinking about doing drag. As a young queer kid, my friends and I, we were out at a thrift store one day before we were going to a party later that night. We found these old gaudy 80s prom dresses on the rack. And we thought, let's buy them and wear them to the party. And a few drinks in, I think we were sitting on garbage bins in someone's front yard in Fitzroy. And we were coming up with characters or the idea of the women that would have bought these dresses when they were brand new. And I decided that my lady was fun, loving, middle-aged Karen, worked in finance. And then when I did drag for the first time, my friend said, well, who are you? And that character name was the first thing that came out of my mouth.
Did the meme affect you after it first took off?
Yeah. I didn't really pay much attention to it until COVID lockdowns. As a drag queen and a cabaret performer, we were the first to lose our jobs. We couldn't go performing, we couldn't go touring anymore. So I was actually living back in my parents' house with my ex-boyfriend at the time, no work, really depressed. And then this Karen thing took off and it was torturous. And I thought, not only have I lost my work, but even if the lockdowns end, how am I going to go back out into the real world and present myself as a Karen? People are going to have different ideas of who they think I am.
Does the Karen meme still affect your show now?
Not so much. I think that I really empowered myself through lockdown and coming out of lockdown and found a way to manipulate the meme and manipulate the joke. I think there was a little bit of responsibility that I felt in there for people with the birth name Karen, and I think I really just needed to change the script and find a way to change the idea of who a Karen is and show that not all Karens want to speak to the manager. We can be fun, lovely, gorgeous community people.
Do you have Karens in your audience?
Oh my gosh, yeah. All the time, like shockingly so. I've written it into my shows now that I kind of do a call out. I say, do we have a Karen in the audience tonight? And always someone's squealing up the back and I say, what do you do for a living? And she's saying, we work in finance. And I find out, after the show when I'm meeting the audience that usually, they find out that I'm in town and they've heard that, Karen from Finance is here and the whole office gets together and take her out for a night out. It's really cute.
Stephen, do you see the humour in having a surname like Trump?
Did you hear that Donald Trump wants to ban shredded cheese?
He wants to ban shredded cheese?
He wants to make America great again. So yes, I do.
So you take full advantage of your name?
All the time.
Build jokes onto it?
Yes.
Do you have any other good jokes?
You heard what happened to him when he got shot the other month.
Oh, no.
Security guard ran up to him and grabbed him and pulled him down and said, "Mickey Mouse," and then walked away. And they said to him later, "What did you say Mickey Mouse for?" He said, "Oh, sorry, I meant to say Donald Duck."
So it sounds like your surname has given you this whole extra layer to your life in the last 10 years.
Yes, it's been great.
Do you know you felt people turned your name into a joke when you were younger? How did you respond?
So my first name is Juna and my surname is Zoo. So that can translate to tuna zoo or smelly fish living at a zoo. So I would always get kids saying bad things about my name or joking about it. And when these things are said to you repetitively over and over again, it really chipped away at my confidence. And from a very young age, I wanted to work in the media industry as a news anchor or a TV producer. And I would turn the TV on and it would be predominantly Anglo people on screen at that time. And so the hopes of ever achieving that dream, being Asian and having an Asian name, just seemed like a far cry.
Your name is also often misspelt. What's that like for you?
Yes, so I have received so many variations of my name. Jula, Juno, Gina, literally everything besides Juna, despite it being in my email address and signature.
You've even got a male name there.
Yes,
Juan.
so I have many school certificates and emails addressed to a middle-aged Mexican man named Juan. Many. I think that's the most common one just because like autocorrect as well corrects it to Juan. Even my own phone does. I think the worst one though was a few years ago. I stumbled across my brother's birth certificate and I saw that my name was spelt tuna.
Really?
And this is a legal document.
Catherine, you started using a new name after finishing high school. What was it about Catherine that stood out to you?
Well, it resonated and I needed a name that was going to give me strength to navigate the difficult journey that lay ahead. And my name, Catherine, has served me very well. I may not have looked like Catherine in the beginning, but I certainly grew into my name.
Why didn't you look like Catherine in the beginning?
Oh, because I transitioned.
So you were born a boy and
Yes.
you wanted a name that suited who you wanted to be.
Correct.
How did you choose Catherine?
Well, there was a girl in high school that I didn't like very much, but the teacher used to say Catherine all the time. And I used to hear the name and I used to think, oh, that sounds really lovely. Oh, that sounds really pretty. And it was also strong. I knew that I'd need a strong name that was feminine and strong.
Is there anyone in your family who has the name Catherine?
Yes. I actually named myself for her. In Fijian, we call, when you're named for someone, it's Yada. And when you call a child after a Yada, you hope that they will embody their spirit. Oh. And my auntie Katerina, she married into my family. So I'm from a Anglo-Fijian family and she was full Fijian. And my family never spoke Fijian at home, only the best British. And she refused. She said, no, I am in Fiji, I will speak Fijian. And then one day she came to Australia for my great-grandmother's 80th birthday and she spoke to me in the worst English I'd ever heard. And I was like, and I said, no, just speak Fijian. She said, no, I am in Australia, I will speak English. And so she spoke to me in terrible English and I spoke to her in terrible Fijian. And I think that's when I decided that she would be my Yada.
Sonia, you're a baby name consultant. What does that involve?
I help parents all over the world who are having trouble naming their child. That can be a child that's coming, sometimes it's renaming children as well.
How does the process work?
So I have social media platforms so people can kind of get a gauge of what my style, taste, preferences, and if they go with that, they go on my website, there's a form, they tell me what their style is, if there's any family names that they want to honour, if there's anything to steer clear, if there's anything really wild and niche. At the moment I've got a consultation which says Patagonia Midwest, so
wow.
I'm from New Zealand and don't wear Patagonia and I'm not from the Midwest, so I really have to step into parents' world.
Why do parents use your service, do you think?
Being a mum myself and going through pregnancy, I realise there's very little that you can control when you're pregnant, and the name is something that you have not total control of because it's not about you, it is about your child at the end of the day, and everyone is going to have an opinion, but it's one of those things that you can kind of steer a little bit more.
We've been hearing about how names impact our lives. What's in a name?
It's the first thing that you give your child. It is the first bit of their story. And I think part of their name is also realising that you have to let it go with them. And it's something, in my own experience, realising that one day it might not be their name as well. Their name can grow, their name can change. So you have to give it as a gift.
Did you like your name?
I hated my name growing up.
Really?
Yeah, I hated my name. No one else had my name. So I grew up in the 90s. There were those personalised cups and mugs and hairbrushes everywhere. Everyone was a Sarah, an Amy or a Jessica, and I sounded middle-aged.
Kuivame, you've been living in Australia for about a year. What responses have you had to your name since you moved here from Ireland?
Mainly shock or confusion, a lot of interest. I feel like people, thankfully, I've had quite a positive response to my name. I can't really say that there's been much negativity. But yeah, I feel like it's mainly just people saying what and being quite confused.
How do you spell Kuiva?
Caoimhe. In Ireland, we have our own language, and that is the Irish spelling. So I think a lot of people get confused. They think that's English letters, but it's actually a whole other language. So, yeah. I get everything but that, obviously.
What do you get on your coffee cup when you put an order in?
Quiver, Jimmy, Jaume, Kumi, Cami, everything but the right spelling. And if I do get the right spelling, I'm like, this is the best day. I'm like, who are you?
What's it like when you're, say, dating?
It's a great Hinge prompt.
Really?
Gets a lot of replies. Everyone just says, how do I say your name? So dating, yeah, it's probably the first thing people say is, oh, before I meet you, I want to know how to say your name. So I usually send the little voice note and say, but yeah, again, it's always like a great conversation starter, good icebreaker.
Being so far away from home, from where your name originated, how does that feel living in Australia?
I actually take a lot of pride in my name. I think it's a great opportunity to educate people, and yeah, I'm quite proud to be Irish, and I love having an Irish name. People would tend to say that it's a dying language, but I think this is a great way to kind of preserve it, and I think that was my mom's goal with naming us Irish names.
So would you say your name's more than a name, it's also hanging on to a language?
Yeah, for sure, hanging on to a language, an identity, the culture, yeah, definitely.
Dimitra, you grew up in a proud Greek Cypriot household. What does your name mean to you?
I love my name. My surname actually means leader in Greek, and I feel that I really embody that in some ways in my career and just in my life. I even just love the way my name is written and the way I hear it from people's mouths, so it's really important to me.
Your family name's Proestos.
Yes.
You changed your surname to Shepherd when you got married. How did it feel to see your new name?
Well, my licence arrived in the mail and I cried.
Really?
I felt like I completely erased my culture and my identity in that moment, and I didn't recognise what I was reading or seeing on the card. I think I'm just I'm just really proud of who I am, and I always talk about my culture and I love speaking Greek, and I felt like it just completely erased it. It just You know, if I was to walk down the street and someone said Mrs. Shepherd, I'd be like, I'm just another white person now. I don't have my point of difference, or, you know, I just felt like I wasn't who I was.
Do you think you'd feel the same way if you married a Greek person?
I do think about that because I like to think I'm quite progressive, except when it came to marriage and everything. I thought, I'm going to be traditional, change my name as soon as I get married, doesn't matter who I marry, it's just that's the way it is. Your family's going to be all together, your kids, everything. And I don't think it would have shocked me as much if it was a Greek name on the licence. I think there would have still been some sort of tie to my identity in some ways, but I don't know if it would still be okay.
Every time I've travelled anywhere, whether it's Australia or overseas, and I'd walk in to register as Dennis O'Hoy, and people would look at me. You Irish? I said, no, I'm full Chinese. Oh, how come you've got a name O'Hoy? Then I'd have to explain that was my grandfather's name. You'll see the big original photograph of my grandfather when he came to Bendigo with his wife in 1860. His name, and my Chinese name, is Louis Du Hoi. Immigration, they phoneticized it to O'Hoy, so the Du Hoi became O'Hoy. Oh, there I am, a little bit younger. I admire my grandfather. He was very entrepreneurial. When you think, just 23 years of age when he arrived here, obviously not speaking English, he had businesses, he ran shops. He came to make his fortune, and he did. He succeeded in making a fortune. Here we are. That is Lung, the oldest imperial dragon left in the world. In Bendigo, they have an Easter Fair procession which started in 1871. And in 1892, my grandfather and the Chinese community contributed to bringing the old dragon out called Lung. Lung means dragon. And that is the original dragon, the first one. The family has contributed a lot to Bendigo, and I'm very proud of that. But everyone knows the O'Hoys. My grandchildren, for instance, are O'Hoy, so I'm very proud of the name. I honour my grandfather, and I honour my ancestors.
You, as a 4-year-old, you immigrated with your family from Taiwan and you started going by a different name. What was it?
When we immigrated, I was called Judy.
That was your white name?
That's correct.
Why did your parents encourage you to use the name Judy?
It is quite fashionable in Taiwan, where all the kids learn English from a very young age, to be coined with an English name. And so when we immigrated, given that my name is you, like the pronoun, they thought it was a good idea to give me an anglicised name so that it would avoid teasing and potential bullying and not fitting in.
Did being Judy make it easier to fit in?
Absolutely not. Judy's quite old-fashioned. I grew up in a predominantly white suburb, and so already there weren't very many Asian families, and growing up in the 2000s, you know, I was born in the 90s, Judy's not a name that you would see lots of little kids with, and it was another marker of being different and not assimilating properly.
What is your full birth name?
So in Mandarin, it's Hong Yu, where we use the surname first, but on paper, it's quite genderless, so it's Yu Hung.
Would you have preferred to have gone by that name growing up?
I don't know. That's a great question, because Yu Hung, I get a lot of phallic jokes being hung, so I don't know if my childhood would have been very different if I stuck with Yu Hung. But Judy isn't on any legal documentation because it was just a name given to me. So on my birth certificate and getting into university. So say for in school, I would always dread roll call. You get to the point where in an alphabetical order, I know that my name's coming up, and the teacher, especially if it was a substitute teacher, would have that ethnic pause where they get to your name and they can't pronounce it, and I say, oh, it's me, and I'm called Judy. And I was doing that a lot for the benefit of other people.
Manoli, you're originally from Sri Lanka. Can you relate to Yu's experience of having a name that people kind of paused at when they were reading it out loud?
Yeah, so I was thinking when you mentioned the ethnic pause, that's such a perfect term for it. I have 4 names, and the name that I go by with Minoli is my first given name. But on all documentations, that's not the first name that they see. That one has, I think, 18 characters. It's pretty long.
So you have 4 names. Your full name is 40 letters long. Let's just have a look at it. How do you say it and what does it mean?
Okay, so my full name is Liana Mhottilage Minoli Sakonika Vichetunga. And I go by Minoli, which is my first given name. So ethnicity-wise, I'm Sinhalese, and in my culture, a lot of people have a lineage name at the beginning and a family name at the end. So Liana Mhottilage, which is my lineage name, it can talk about your, so caste-wise, what trade you used to do, or where you were from, like your residence, or it could mean house of. There are different meanings to it. And then Vichetunga is what I would call my surname, because that's at the end. So Minoli is my first given name, and that was actually given by my dad. And I know my dad said when he named me Minoli, he thought that was a bit more anglicized. So no matter where I went in the world, that would be easy for people to say. I don't think he foresaw what Liana Mhottilage could do to me. But yeah, and then Sakonika is my middle name. My grandmother gave it to me. It means bird. So I have 2 given names sandwiched between 2 family names.
How do those outside Sri Lanka react if they make a mistake with your name?
Basically in Western countries, I've lived in the UK as well, they will try to say Liana Mhottilage, and if they make a mistake, and I would say, oh, it's fine, you can say Minoli, you can call me Minoli, that's my name, they would insist on me teaching them how to say Liana Mhottilage, and then often follow it up with, oh, but that's such a pretty name, it's so musical. I'm like there's almost a romanticization of it. It's a family name. If you tell me your name is Smith, I'm not going to say, oh, wow, I'm not going to comment on your, surname. It just feels weird, a whole production, when I just want you to call me by the name I want you to call me.
In Australia, official paperwork often requires a first, a middle and a last name. What's it like having a name that doesn't follow that standard protocol?
So that's been quite difficult. Also because Liana Mhottilage has 18 characters, that doesn't fit on most forms. So with, when I go to the GP, for example, they can't look me up in their system because Liana Mhottilage is lopped off somewhere in the middle. So now my GP has a note saying, for all Medicare purposes, just issue the invoice to me and I'll make the claim myself. It's a lot of, I would say, putting thought into processes and always knowing that, oh, this is going to be a thing and I need to prepare for it.
Le Kapose, you're Karen, an ethnic group of Southeast Asia. How do families create names in your culture?
The Karen people are very particular when it comes to name. When the baby born, they will think about the future first for the baby. How do they want the baby to be? For example, my name, Le Kapose, it can translate it as shiny stone or shiny rock. And so my dad have a dream, and he hoped that one day I will be a good example for people and be a good path for the people. And sometimes it's pretty hard to live up to the name because there's a lot of expectation in the name.
Do you have a surname?
Originally, I don't. However, come to Australia where we had to do a form, so they have a surname. So they cut part of my name. So Le Kopo is now my first name, and Say is now my last name.
Okay, so when you had to then apply for Medicare cards and things like that, you had a surname, which was the last part of your name.
Yep.
And what about your parents? What's their surname?
They don't really have a surname because traditionally, like I said before, we don't really have a surname. So my mom and my dad, they added another name. So I'm Le Kapose, my sister is Le Pose, my brother is Hennessy, and my mom is Me Pose, and dad is Salose. So everyone has same name, which it doesn't really mean anything. It's just
you can do the forms. Dimitri, you became emotional when you first saw your married name written down on that driver's licence. What happened next?
I looked at Ben and I said, we're going back to Service New South Wales and I'm changing it. And I double-barrelled it. So I put my name back in and added his. So
So you're now Dimitra Proestos Shepherd,
That's right.
double-barrelled. Your sons share your double-barrelled surname. Why did you want them to be Proestos Shepherds?
I wanted them to be able to have that identity of their Cypriot roots, and I felt if it's Zachary Shepherd, it kind of erases that completely right from the get-go. So kind of instilling who I am as a person and who I've been raised to be as a person, he gets that chance from the beginning too, and now my second son too.
Ben, you're Dimitra's husband. Have you also changed your surname?
Not yet. We've discussed it. I spoke to my family about it, and they were supportive in a silent way. You could tell they wanted to be supportive, but internally they were apprehensive.
Would you like your name to be the same as your wife and sons?
That's the main reason that I wanted to change my name to Proestos Shepherd, so that we're one family unit.
Why do you feel like your family is a bit hesitant?
I think because I come from a very traditional Anglo family, and in that way, the wife would always take the husband's name and things like that. I was brought up like that, and I had never thought about how, until I saw Dimitra's reaction, how a woman actually felt about giving up their name and how important it was.
Peter, you changed your name to distance yourself from your Greek father. Why was that?
Well, his name was Peter Bylos and my name was Peter Bylos. And I never really, he was Greek and I was born in Australia. I never really felt that I had any affinity with the Greek culture. We weren't Greek Orthodox, we didn't speak Greek at home, and we didn't sort of have holidays in Greece. And as I was growing up, I realised that I didn't, on a more personal level, I didn't agree with my father's attitude towards women. He drank excessively and he gambled excessively to the detriment of the family. And so as a teenager, I thought I really need to detach myself or differentiate myself from my father. And so when my parents got divorced, I thought now is the time to change my name.
How did you choose your new name?
Well, I'd always had a passion for cricket, right, when I was about 11 or 12. And I remember my parents saying to me, the World Cup final 1975 between Australia and the West Indies was being played at Lord's, and Clive Lloyd played an innings of 102 off 85 deliveries. And as a kid, I'd never seen an innings like this, the power, the authority. He was running up and down the wicket like a Black Panther, a super cat, that was his nickname. So to acknowledge that innings and the passion for cricket I still have, I changed my surname to Lloyd after Clive Lloyd's 102 off 85 deliveries, 1975 World Cup.
So you named yourself Peter Lloyd.
Yes.
If another player had performed super well in that match, could your name have been something else?
My daughter got married recently and we discussed name changes, and she said, my father named himself after some cricketer. I thought, some cricketer, Clive Lloyd, one of the greats of West Indian cricket. So I said, I think the family was so lucky that Clive Lloyd played that innings of 102 on that 1975 World Cup final, because I said to her, Alvin Kalachurran was also in that game, and if he would have scored 102 off 85 deliveries, I said to Julia Kalachurran doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely as Julia Lloyd or Peter Lloyd for that matter.
How did it feel to change your name?
It was empowering, to be honest. So I made an effort to be different when it came to personal relationships, to love, to persevere, a different attitude towards alcohol and towards gambling. And I made sure that no one would say that I was going to be my father's son. And changing the name empowered me to be able to make those changes, to be different.
Wow.
And I'd like to think 30 odd years later, they have, yeah.
Jess, your parents' divorce also affected the way you felt about your name. What was it like going by your father's surname as a child?
I felt like as a child, you don't know any different. That's your name. It's on little stickers on pencils, on your pencil case, maybe on your uniform if you keep losing your hat. It's just something that you take for granted. And so once my family divorced, it kind of represented this shattering of what we've talked about a lot tonight, in that your last name is your identity. It's what you've been given.
How did having your father's surname affect your mental health?
I really kind of experienced a very tough time as a teenager. I struggled at school and I wasn't able to be a kid. I saw friends that had their father's last names and they just seemed to have it all together, and mine just seemed to be falling apart.
Did you think that changing your name was an option for you?
No, that was something that people did if they changed their name when they got married and divorced. That was the only time that people changed their name, from my understanding, as a teenager. So for me, it was almost just the wildest idea possible to know that, hey, a minor can also change their name. It's not the typical, but it can be done.
Your mum helped you change your name when you were a child. How did it feel to have a new surname?
It quite literally changed and saved my life. I truly believe that if I was the previous Jessica, that my life would be extremely different than what it is now. So I'm so proud. Anytime I introduce myself, I say, "Hi, I'm Jess O'Halloran."
Catherine, in 1997, you wanted to travel overseas. How easy was it to apply for a Fijian passport using your chosen name as a transgender woman?
Well, it had never been done before. I literally had to change the world for my name.
You called the Fijian embassy in Canberra every day, I think. What was their response to your request?
Oh, they were very polite the first time, but I think by the 100th time they just kept hanging up on me. So I'd ring and go, "Hello," and they'd just hang up.
Really?
Yeah, well, I was only 23, so when you're young, you can ask the same question 100 different times, expecting and hoping for a new answer.
You flew to Canberra.
Yes.
This you
was
then?
me when I was 20. I was very beautiful, which was also a part of the issue. Travelling under a male name looking like this spelt danger in many countries. I would have been vulnerable to physical and sexual violence. And that's why I pushed to have a female name to travel.
When you got to Canberra, what happened?
Well, they were, I looked spectacular. And the lady that kept hanging up on me on the phone, the doors opened at the embassy and she sort of scraped the ground. "Hello, madam, how can I help you?" I said, "You keep hanging up on me." And she said, "Why did you come down here?" And I said, look at me, you can't expect me to travel. It's never been done. I said, "We can do it now." "No, it's never been done." I said, "We can do this now." And she said, "Would you like to speak to someone higher up?" And I said, "Yes, please." And she was furious. And eventually I did speak to someone, and my arguments were that at the time Fiji used a Commonwealth Australian law, and you could change your name legally from male to female in Australia. And I said to them, your passport asks for safe passage, and I would not have safe passage travelling under a male name.
You ended up travelling to Fiji to request a passport be issued in your preferred name.
Yes.
Were you successful?
Yes. Well, I'm a bit determined. And, I became the first transgender woman in Fiji to be openly and legally granted a female name by the Fijian government, which is on my passport and my birth certificate. I think the government in the end was like, "Oh, trouble ahead, give her damn passport and get her out of the country."
How did it feel to see your name in your new passport for the first time?
I don't think words can really properly express how beautiful it is. A trans woman, I am an expression of who I am inside. And, to see my name on a document was a fulfillment of a dream. And I don't think you can really properly, it's not just my dream. This is the dream of thousands of years of generations of trans people.
How much did it cost you to get there?
Well, yes, it cost a lot of money, even in a third world country. It was thousands, and I never ever told anyone about what I did, mainly because it was so traumatic. I had PTSD from it. I haven't been back to Fiji since. It was a trauma. That's why you can't call me Kathy. Every syllable cost me a fortune.
Now it's known as Pirita Island. I think it means oysters in the mangroves. That's the Aboriginal term for Pirita. But we know the island as Coon Island. Well, the name is important because of the history behind it.
We used to swim out here.
Yeah.
We used to swim over to that island.
It was named after my grandfather. I'm disappointed that it was changed, but I understand it.
They've interfered with history. We're grandsons of Herbert Greta Heaney, known as Coon. And this is where Pop lived. Pop occupied the first house on the island. He was a bit of a larrikin. He was called from when he was a kid, Coon, because of his olive skin and his black eyes, like a raccoon.
But because the name being derogatory to black people, it became a subject that was really targeted. It was spearheaded over at council, and the mayor at the time told us that people could vote whether to keep the name the same or to change the name. The vote was in the majority to keep the name the same.
Oh man, it up.
But they decided to change it anyhow. I know my family and their family will always call it Cooney.
The people that lived on the island or come to the island named it. And that was history. And I'm a sticker for history.
Chris, you supported Lake Macquarie City Council's decision to rename Pirita Island.
Yes.
Why?
I was just uncomfortable with the word, the naming. I'd always found it unfortunate, particularly given the history of what it meant, partly in America, but also here as well, particularly with the meaning with blackface as well. And I just didn't think that we could keep a word like that as a community moving forward.
The island was originally named after its first white resident. Should we acknowledge that history?
Yes, I think it should be, but it's also the Indigenous history that's been there for 60,000 years as well. Which history do you want to talk about? How can you just wipe aside 60,000 years of history?
Some locals disagreed with the change. They felt the original name was not intended to be racist. Does the reasoning behind a name matter?
It does, but there's also the issue that if you become aware of something and the other kind of meaning that it has, I think that matters as well.
Sonia, before you became a baby name consultant, you worked in brand strategy and marketing. How hard is it to rename or rebrand something?
Incredibly difficult depending on which way you do it. If it is something that needs to be renamed because it's tied to scandal or a bad history, it's necessary. But if something is so synonymous and entrenched, it can be incredibly difficult to shift people's mindset.
How do brands then come up with effective names?
So when I was in brand strategy, I would name colours, collections, products, and there's twofold. Create a difficult name that's difficult but short, that creates conversation because people are asking, how do you pronounce it? So even if they're not going to engage with the name, they're talking about it. So it's part of the language. Or give it a person's name and then it makes something inanimate, human, and then you tie something to it. I found it quite interesting though. ChatGPT has notoriously named their personas not human names, which I think is important to make it feel like they're not actually human or going to take over us. So they're doing the reverse, which has never been done really.
Hey Siri.
Hey.
I'm the first person to make that joke, right?
Not today.
Every day?
I hear it a lot, yeah.
Siri, what's it like sharing your name with such an ever-present brand?
I like it. It's just not really something that I've thought about a lot. Obviously, since Siri was introduced, like the joke was made like all the time, and now I just kind of am used to it.
How does your name affect your daily life?
So it's quite funny that obviously when people kind of call out to me and go like, "Hey Siri," and even now like some phone might just go off randomly in the office. It would be like a common occurrence when, you know, a colleague or a boss would just be like, "Hey Siri, can you come in my office?" And then their phone would go off and be like, "I can't help you with that." And it's like, ha ha ha. So yeah.
You know, when you set up your phone with your name and you ask Siri to do it, how did that work for you?
When it just first came out, it just wouldn't understand it. So when I typed in like, "Oh, my name is Siri," and it had to go back and forth a few times, and it just didn't understand that was my name.
How do you feel about your name?
I love it. My mum actually liked the name because she likes the letter I and she thinks it's like a happy letter. My mum, dad and brother all have I's in their names. And it just means like superwoman, empowering and things like that in different cultures and languages across the world. So I'm pretty proud of it.
Karen from Finance, how important is your name in the world of drag?
Wildly important. As I said earlier, it started as a joke, but I've become so attached to it. About 2 years ago, I was kind of getting burnt out with drag. It's a really important time in the world to be an artist, but it's a really difficult time in the world to be an artist. And so I took a little break. And I've come back to performing in the last couple of months just purely because of how much I missed that character and that person and being this persona.
What did you miss about Karen from Finance?
I missed the way she kind of lit up a room when she walked in. I missed the effect that she had on people. I love being at a club or, you know, a festival, in any kind of space where I can be performing, where it's not just the show that makes people smile and laugh, it's her connection and presence. It's a really powerful thing that I haven't wrapped my head around how that exists yet, but I know that I have that superpower within me. And yeah, I really missed that.
Juno, you were bothered by how often your name was misspelt when you were younger. Does that still affect you as an adult?
Absolutely not. I could have taken it two ways. I could have continued despising my name or used it as to my advantage. And I did manage to land a job as a writer for a publication while I was at uni. And when I landed this job, the amount of emails I would receive on a daily basis from PRs addressed to June, Juno, Junie, anyone but me, was hilarious to me. So I actually started to post every single email on my Instagram stories. And then it became kind of my personal brand that the media industry would associate me with. I wouldn't have been able to make all these connections in the media industry if it wasn't because of a weird name.
So your brand is kind of the girl with the weird name?
The girl with the weird name. I received so many DMs from friends and colleagues of all those funny memes of people misspelling their names, and I'm like, yes, 10 other people have sent me that already. But it's really funny.
Le Quapose, as per tradition in the Karen culture, you weren't given a surname at birth. How does it feel to have a surname that you can pass on to your own children one day?
Feel very special. I don't think it would mean anything to me if I'm back in the country, but in here, I learned it is something that is you can be proud of, because I want to know my grandfather and my like great, like, you know, where we came from. But the thing is, we don't have a surname, so we can't track it back. So I wanted to be the first generation that have a surname, and I am the first generation that have a surname. So my legacy, so, you know, if I have a kid, great-kid later, so they will know, you know, where they come from and then who they are, because that is very important. And as my dad intended to call me, because he called me Le Quapose, so save me to be bright. So I wanted to be the star for the next generation to come.
Stephen, you've always been interested in the history of people's surnames.
Yes.
Do our names shape our identities?
I think they do, and in different ways. My name is Trump, and we came from royal trumpeters and drummers, they say. And music was in my family. My dad was a tap dancer and a singer. I've got a niece who's a singer. And my granddaughter now wants to do tap dancing, which I thought was interesting because it was just something that her great-grandfather did. So, yeah, I think it does.
Catherine, it's been almost 30 years since you became the first transgender person in Fiji to legally change their name. What is in a name for you?
Well, my name is everything to me. It has empowered me. It has given me strength. And in my era now where I'm an elder, you know, and so my name now carries precedence for me. I can say Catherine Wolfe Graham, and people have heard of me. That gives me great pride because I wasn't expecting to be much. I had no enormous ambition for myself when I first transitioned. I just wanted to be a beautiful woman, and I'm pleased. Other trans people now in Fiji, they can all change their name. You know, and I'm proud of that too.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all for being here. That's all we have time for. You can catch up on this episode or any others on SBS On Demand. I'll see you next time.